George Stinney was a 14-year-old boy from a poor town who got lost in history. But now it's time to tell a story. By writing Stinney, I'm writing about my home, and I'm trying to wrestle with a lot of the questions that I had growing up, and looking at this world from the point of view of someone who didn't really understand why there was that divide, and frankly still doesn't really understand. I'm writing the story as someone who feels like this story needs to be told, and not just as a story where there are victims and villains, but as a story where there are good people who got caught up in a really horrible situation, and ask the question, what would it take to send a child to execution? I've got a story about a child from the South, and I love opera, so why not make this a opera that's full of gospel music, and full of jazz, and full of blues, and folk tunes, and Baptist hymns, and really create this world, not just visually, but also sonically and aurally. I mean, by doing that, you get another layer of these people, and another layer of these characters, because music is so important to that community, so important to the South. Arts are meant to comment on the world and to focus on issues that we see and that need to be addressed. And honestly, they're meant to bring people together in a community to create something that's bigger than themselves and better than themselves, and to leave their community better.
This project is important to me because I think about this being a 14-year-old boy in the wrong place at the wrong time. The reason that he ended up being accused of this murder and then being executed for it was because all he wanted to do was help. I'm very grateful that he was exonerated, but unfortunately it was about 70 years too late. So I know that through sharing this story, we are going to bring about healing, which I think is something that we really need, especially with all of the recent events of police brutality and social injustice. Sharing our stories, sharing our pain brings peace.
I love Baltimore, but it's a little bit of a tough love because it's a beautiful city. It's also a very difficult city because it's very segregated and it's very crime-ridden. My relationship with Baltimore is very much this kind of love where it's constantly breaking my heart. There's no way in which we can justify murdering for justice. And so just the idea of taking someone's life for what they did at 14 is just absolutely anathema to me. As Frances began talking about the project with me, my first reactions were to try to steer her away from it. What I found is that at every point that what she's after has been a very deep response to very serious issues, and that this to me makes it a very important project. There's a lot more depth going on here than I think you would realize you were going to be in for just by reading the bios and resumes of the people involved with the project.
We can't make sure that things are never going to happen again, but at least there's going to be awareness, and where there's awareness,